Hey guys, welcome back to another podcast. Today I'm joined with Cole McCarthy. Cole, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So the first thing I want to talk about is the playoffs, and who do you think will win the chip this year?
I could see the Lakers or the Bucks winning it. Either one of those teams. I could see them in a close finals matchup.
Yeah.
Giannis against LeBron, that'd be insane. But I
Mhm.
could see that.
Yeah. So what do you think about the Battle of LA?
Um, it's interesting because both cities have the two main players. Like the Clippers have Paul George and Kawhi, and then the Lakers have LeBron and Anthony Davis. And then I think it's going to come down to the other players on their teams
Hmm.
because they're kind of even. Like, let's say the Lakers have Avery Bradley, JaVale McGee, Danny Green. The Clippers they have Marcus Morris. I think he's a plus. They have Zubac, whatever his name is. They have
Hmm.
Pat Bev. So, I mean, it really, I could just come down to who has the better role players. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
I feel like they have kind of equal stars. Like, of course, they're not like position equal, but like talent wise, other than LeBron, I think LeBron and Kawhi are about even. And then
Yeah.
Paul George is a little bit worse than Anthony Davis, but they're
Mhm.
both still like very good players. But I do like
Yeah.
the role players on the Clippers a lot better
Yeah, Sam.
because they have a lot more bodies that they can throw at LeBron and throw at AD. You can put
Yeah.
Marcus Morris, you can put Kawhi, Paul George, Pat Beverly has
Yeah, their
like done an
defense is
amazing
insane.
job.
Yeah.
And I think it can only and like Kawhi is a different person in the playoffs, and we've seen
Yeah.
that last year.
Uh,
So it'll be interesting to see. And I wonder if Paul George will be able to stay healthy. That'll be interesting to kind of see
yeah.
that. And I don't know how that'll turn out, but we'll see. So yeah. The next thing I want to talk about is the draft coming up. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I feel like the 2020 draft is. I think it's going to be a weaker draft class.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
just it doesn't really come out as a really strong, talented group. I mean, obviously, you got talent in it because every draft class has talent, but I think it's going to be like the one draft in the early 2000s. It was weaker. I forget which one it was, but
Mhm.
I don't see a lot of talent. Like, I mean, obviously you got James Wiseman, LaMelo Ball, some other key players that are gonna do just fine in the league, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what about you?
I think it's a very weak draft class, and like it's very heavy at the guard position. So I think a lot of
Yeah,
teams that are trying to expand not at the guard position are going to have a lot of trouble.
like the Rockets.
Um,
Yeah,
mhm. Yeah, and I think like the I think the Hawks might have a dilemma with that because I don't know if they're really because they're okay. So you have Trey Young that's a really bad defender, and I think they're trying to look for a good defending guard or defending wing player. And I think they
mhm.
thought that they got that with DeAndre Hunter. So it might be interesting if they stay with him or they try to go with like an Anthony Edwards or something to try to play
Yeah,
that three spot and be good on D. But it'll be interesting.
yeah,
And yeah.
sure
So
will. So,
I was looking at the draft predictions, and I saw that the Sixers are predicted to get Sadiq Bey from Villanova. What would you think about that draft selection?
um, I mean, what position does he play?
He plays small forward. He looks like a pretty good 3 and D player. So, I don't know.
Okay. I mean, it could be good
Mhm.
because I mean, if he plays the small forward shooting guard and he is there with Josh Richardson, I could see that being helpful. Also, like Tobias Harris, I could see maybe that being a good mix.
Yeah.
I don't know though. I mean,
Yeah, I
it
think he
could
could
help.
be a
See what it.
so,
Yeah,
mhm.
it'll be a surprise.
I think he could be like a Rocco type player where he's just like he's 3 and D,
Yeah,
he's really good on defense, but then he can shoot the three and just kind of space the floor. And that'll be interesting to see.
yeah.
So, what do you think about the Sixers and what can they do going forward to kind of help their team?
Um, I think they should play out the season, and I think next season's the year they should get new staff. Like they have the talent. Their
Hmm.
staff is just Brett Brown. I don't think he's getting the job done.
Hmm.
Like the late game, we're like beating all these good teams, and then we lose to these. We're getting killed by like the Magic, and it's like
Hmm.
not that the Magic are awful, but we should be beating them by a reasonable amount.
Hmm.
So I think we just need to advance our staff, and I
Yeah.
think that if we could do that, we might have a chance at a chip.
Hmm. I think, the key part of it is changing the staff, but also is, they need to figure out a plan to load manage Joel Embiid.
Yeah,
They need to figure out an offense that can like get both of them to like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid to play well. And I think they need to get off one of the two, either Tobias Harris or the Al Horford contracts that I think are really bad contracts.
yeah, I know
Um,
both of them,
yeah,
especially the Al
$25
Horford.
million. Well, yeah, $25
Yeah,
million, and he's going to be like 36, I think, at the end of the contract or something.
yeah.
It's a bad contract, but I hope they can offload it, because then if they don't offload it, I think they're really going to be in trouble with trying to find other players. But
Yeah.
I like the move that they were in the mid-season kind of thinking about is CJ McCollum for Tobias Harris. I like that move for the team, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, do you think if it doesn't work out, what do you think they might trade Joel Embiid to a different team or Ben Simmons? Who do you think they would trade out of those two?
I think they would trade Ben Simmons.
Hmm.
Um, just because Joel Embiid, he's continuing to get better. The past couple seasons, Ben Simmons, his points haven't went up at all. And I mean, if he could get a three ball, it'd be different. But I think the Sixers, if he's not going to work on that, I think they should consider trading him, and
Yeah.
like, or just like force him to work on it.
Hmm.
So, but Ben Simmons has great potential, but he needs to actually work on different aspects of his game to improve. So, I mean, what about you? Do you have any thoughts?
I think first of all, I think they need like or I think Ben Simmons need to be pushed more to just shoot it, because
Hmm.
I don't know if he's going to be an elite, I don't think he'll ever be an elite shooter, but it's like
Yeah, yeah.
Giannis was last year, where he wasn't a
Hmm.
great 3-point shooter, but he just shot it to be like, you kind of have to guard me
You got
because
to
I'm going to
respect
might
him.
make it
Yeah,
sometime. Yeah. And now they can just sag him off so far and just pretty much he can only make layups. And I think
hmm,
that's a real detriment to the team. But if he starts to make strides at the 3-point line, I could see them trading Joel Embiid instead, because Joel Embiid has injury history. And I think the NBA is shifting, of course, away from centers that are just dominant in the low post.
yeah.
And, I think it'll be interesting to see if he does succeed. But I think he'd be the first to go out of them too. If one of them leaves, do you have a team in mind that might try to go after them?
I mean, not really.
Hmm.
Honestly, it could be
Yeah.
any team. So, what about? Do you have any thoughts on a team that might go after one of them?
Well, I think with the tweets, or what is it, Instagram or something, I don't remember. But Joel Embiid and Jimmy Butler were kind of going back and forth. I think
Hmm.
Joel Embiid really liked Jimmy Butler because he was a guy that was
Yeah,
kept them what they had to do
in
and kept
order.
them on schedule. Yeah, kept them in order. Yeah, and I think he really enjoyed that, and I think he's kind of missing that on the roster now.
Yeah,
So I think he would want to go to Miami. I don't know if he end up or will end up going to Miami. It'll be interesting to see though.
yeah,
So, hmm
yeah. I could see that.
hmm have you heard the JJ Redick podcast talking about with Jimmy Butler and what it was like to be in the locker room there?
I heard something on that, and
Hmm.
they were watching film and they couldn't talk or something like that.
Yeah, no one was
Is that
talking.
it?
I thought, yeah, I thought that was interesting because if that's how bad the culture is for the Sixers, they really need to like, clean out the staff and like see what they can do because they have a
Yeah.
really like good roster, I think,
Hmm.
um, for the players they have on it. So I just think in the East they could make it to the finals with the roster, but I don't think the coaching is helping the roster at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. hmm
Yeah.
So the next thing I want to turn to is the Nets. So what do you think about the Nets, first of all, firing Kenny Atkinson?
I mean, I'm like, I guess, like, what was Kenny Atkinson doing? Because I didn't really like know about him. Like, I knew his name, but
Yeah, he kind of built okay. So like the Nets, of course, weren't a great team a couple years ago, and
yeah,
he built a culture there of like winning and stuff like that. But
yeah,
like I think like it was kind of with Brett Brown as well. Is like he was there for the process, and I think they've allowed him to have a couple years, and that's why I think they haven't fired him yet. And I think they should have given him a little bit of time, but I think the main reason they fired him was because Kyrie and Katie wanted him out. So it'll
yeah,
be I like that's my like opinion on that. So I don't know.
yeah. I mean, who are they gonna pick up now? Then who did they pick
It's
up?
Well, they haven't picked up anyone. They have Jacques Vaughn as the interim head coach, but they're expected to try to go after Ty Lue this
Okay,
summer, so that'll be interesting.
yeah,
So,
I could. That's a decent coach. I could see that.
mhm.
Like him with the Nets. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
All
it'll
right.
be an interesting shift.
Yeah.
So I've like looked at this trade and talked to people about this. What do you think about the Nets for next year? Of course, Kyrie has been saying they need another piece. They try to trade like Jared Allen and either Spencer Dinwiddie or Karis LeVert for Bradley Beal. What do you think about that trade?
I think that could be good because that could bring
hmm
in that third key piece that could help them get to the finals or even win the finals.
hmm
Like they're all good role players. The Nets have
Yeah.
a really talented team, but I mean, like, do you need Spencer Dinwiddie when you have Kyrie? Is that like, do you need that good of a backup point guard? So I mean, like, I could see them trading away one of them for
hmm
Bradley Beal. I could see
Yeah.
that.
I could definitely see that. I think that'd be like, of course, they'd have to give up picks. It
Hmm.
wouldn't just be them two, but like, I think it'd be a good deal. And, it'll be interesting to see that like three-team duo or three-player like monster just see because they could really, go out and destroy teams. But I think it all depends on Kyrie, like, and his leadership in the locker room because that in my
Yeah.
opinion, I would never want to have him as a G. If I was a
Hmm.
GM, I'd never want to have him on my team because he just seems to ruin everything. You
Yeah,
know.
I know. Like him with the Celtics, all
hmm
those stories, like that makes me want to. That would make me want to not have him on my team just because he has a bad atmosphere, that vibe that comes with him,
hmm
even though he's
I
a really
think,
talented player.
yeah, I think he learned from LeBron, and just because he's learned all of these habits from LeBron, and he thinks he is like a LeBron type figure where he can just do whatever he wants,
Yeah,
and I just don't think he's earned that respect in the league yet. But like he's a very crafty and good player, but I don't know how much of a team player he is. So
yeah,
yeah.
hmm yeah. Like him on the Cavaliers, and back when LeBron was in Miami, when he was just there by himself, he could have learned some. He could have learned some bad habits there. Of just, I mean, he was the key player of that team, and there was like nobody there with him. He might have
Mhm.
learned like a me over team kind of thing there, and that could have translated to later. But
Yeah, so now I want to talk about the Rookie of the Year race and kind of Ja Morant and Zion.
okay.
What's your opinion on like who do you think will win the Rookie of the Year at the end of the season?
I mean, I heard John Morant's like averaging like 16, 17 points a game, and Zion has 23, 24. Is that it?
I believe Ja has closer to 20. I can look it up
Closer to
real
20.
quick. Yeah,
All right.
but I think it'll be interesting. Um, but like,
Yeah.
do you think if Zion were to play all the games this year, would he automatically, in your opinion, win the Rookie of the Year?
Not automatically. He would have to do really good things in those games, higher than his like career average points and good defensive stats. Like I think John Morant's going to win it just because he's played more games. And this coronavirus thing, if the season ends right here and that's it, I John Morant's I think 80% is going to win it, at least
Yeah.
80%.
hmm
Yeah.
I just looked it up. You were right. Ja is closer to 17.
Okay.
17 points, 3 rebounds, and then 7 assists. But
All
yeah,
right.
you're right. So let's I want to talk about kind of the young rosters. Who in the next like coming years on like some teams, who do you think could really be in title contention that aren't now, but like have a really young roster that could develop into a really good like championship team?
I mean, obviously, I see the Celtics. I could see them developing. I mean, they have Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum, Daniel, or what's his not Daniel,
Uh, well, Daniel Tice
Tice. Is
is
it Tice?
yeah,
Okay.
he's their like center. He
Yeah.
technically is a forward, but he plays center for them. So
How young is he? He's
he's
younger.
26, 27, I think.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I could see. I mean, Kemba. You got their whole squad is in their 20s. I think for the most part, and they're starting.
Mhm,
So I could see them developing into a really really good team.
mhm.
So I mean, what about you?
I could see like of course the Mavericks have young
Yeah.
players that could really develop and they're already in the playoff contention.
Yeah.
Um I would love to say the Atlanta Hawks, but I'm unsure with the front office there
hmm
because like of course, they thought this year they were going to have a chance of, making it to the playoffs and, maybe winning a couple games. I don't think they thought they could win a round, but I thought they could win, I thought that they could win, or they could at least get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I don't even think, like, I think next year, like, I would have thought that they would have at least developed their players and they would look like a better team. But I don't think if they've really improved at all this season, other than Trey Young, really.
Yeah. hmm Yeah. I mean, their record wasn't great. Like if they and their team had potential to be a playoff, an 8 or 7th or 8th seed. Like if that's how it's going to be, then I can't see them going anywhere too far.
Mm-hmm.
So unless they make
Yeah,
some differences, changes. So
and I think they'll probably lose John Collins because they really don't want to give him a max. And I, as a GM, I wouldn't want to give him a max either.
no,
He's
yeah,
not a max contract player, um, and so I think he'll go somewhere else. And depending on if they trade him and get something for him, or if they just let him walk in free agency, they might not. Well, not let him walk because he's looking for an extension. He's still on contract, but like they'll wait until next season, then lose him in free agency. It'll be interesting.
yeah, sure
Um,
will.
yeah, what do you think about the Memphis Grizzlies and like what they're kind of building there with like their really young core?
I mean, I they have a lot of potential. I mean,
Mhm.
John Morant could develop into an excellent player. Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, both really talented people are already. I mean, they keep at if they keep on adding more skillful role players, they could be a good playoff contender.
Yeah, I really like what they or with that Andre Iguodala trade, trading for Justice Winslow. I think that was a really good move, and I think Brandon Clark and the rest of the crew around there is pretty good. Jonas Valanciunas has like had spurts of being good, like really good center this year. So we'll
Yeah.
see what he like can do for the team.
Yep.
And yeah, so what do you think about the Pelicans? Because they have, I think they have a really good roster, but I'm not sure how many of those players they can keep because Brandon Ingram, I don't know if they'll be wanting to pay him and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
Um, Another really talented team, if they keep everybody, that could develop into another playoff contender. Like the East could be really strong eventually if they keep developing, but it just depends on who they keep. I mean, they have a bunch of young players, obviously,
Hmm.
but the same thing as it's basically the same thing as the Grizzlies and the Celtics, and yeah. So
Hmm. Yeah. So I thought I'd ask you this. What do you think the Mavericks can do to really push their team into maybe the title contention instead of just always in the playoff hunt? Because I think right now they're kind of the team that's going to be always in the playoff hunt, but I think they
yeah,
kind of need an extra piece. What do you think that piece might be?
um, whoever it would be, I mean, I think they could pick somebody up in free agency. Maybe I don't know who will it be, but that could be the push they make to become a title contender. Just I think just practicing, improving all their players. I think they should focus on Luca getting a little more athletic,
Hmm.
maybe, and yeah, just keep doing that, and they all have a chance.
Yeah.
So
I think, like, of course, we heard about them trying to trade for Andre Drummond. They might go after him in free agency, and that'll be interesting. Or they might just wait for the 2021 free agency and, see if they can get any of those players. But I'm not
mhm.
sure, like, I'm not sure what'll happen because I think they have a really good roster, but then they have some older players that I think, like, that aren't great, in my opinion,
Yeah,
um, that I think will probably like not help the team as much as they need. But it'll be interesting. And I think Seth Curry has really proven himself. He's a great player in the
yeah,
league, and he's
mhm.
shown himself to be a really good shooter. So,
Yep.
mhm,
So
yeah. So I want to ask you also about what do you think about the Utah Jazz? And like, do you think Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert can kind of fix their relationship after this whole coronavirus situation?
yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be that much of a problem. Honestly,
Mhm.
I think I think they're just gonna recover from it. They'll get playing again. I don't think they're gonna think a lot about it. So I mean, who knows though? Anything could happen.
Mhm.
What
So
about you?
I I really think they have a good roster, and I like the moves that they made in the offseason. I think they're contending for a title. I don't think they can
Yeah,
win in the West, and how good
strong.
it is in the West. Yeah.
Yeah,
But it'll be interesting to see like what they go from here because Donovan Mitchell he's insane. He's really good,
yeah,
and Rudy Gobert is just a great defender.
hmm
So it'll be interesting. I think they need to put a really good playmaking point guard next to Donovan Mitchell, and I think they tried to do that with Michael Conley, but it obviously didn't work. So I think they're gonna have to try to think about something else and maybe trading for another player or trying to draft someone. So it'll be
yeah.
interesting. Mhm.
Maybe even like I don't know what pick they have, but actually no, that wouldn't work. Maybe trade for Lamelo Ball. I mean, he's a really good playmaking point guard. That might help, but I don't know.
Mhm.
There's probably a bunch of others in the draft.
Yeah,
I just don't know about.
it's a lot of guards in the draft, so it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see. And I don't know because I could see good guards dropping in the draft because there's just so many to choose from.
yeah.
It'll be interesting. So yeah. So then also I thought I'd ask you about the Utah or not the Utah Jazz, I just said, the Denver Nuggets. What do you think about the Denver Nuggets and like what do you think about their two star players?
Um, I think Jamal Murray. I think he's underrated.
Hmm.
Like you don't hear a lot about him, but when you watch him, you realize how good he really is. I think Jokic, he's a great player. I mean, he had a little bit of consistency where he had I think a few games where he had like 9 points, 10 points. But other than that, he's proved himself that he's a great player.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, just adding on to that team. Maybe making Nikola more athletic, if that's possible. Make him more slim.
Mhm.
That could be good, but we'll see.
Yeah. I think their big problem was this year is Nikola Jokic was not fit coming into
Yeah.
the season. And I think that'll be their big focus going into next year is can they get him fit and can they get him ready for NBA gameplay earlier in the season? So,
Yep.
yeah, I think that'll be the big piece for them. Another team in the West that was in the playoff hunt, and I think now they're out of it. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but the Portland Trailblazers. What do you think about their roster, and what do you think could happen with them?
Um, it's good. I mean, obviously, like I think they're a little inconsistent, but Damian Lillard, that playoff mode, if they make it, as proven last year. But I could honestly seeing them trade one of their star players away just
Mm-hmm.
because they have the good team. It's just not working out. So maybe try something new. But
Mm-hmm. I
who
think
knows?
Dame, if he were to leave the Portland Trailblazers and go anywhere, he'd be such a good player. And I get
Yeah.
loyalty is a great thing, but they I don't think he's gonna contend for a championship anytime. I think
Mhm.
last year was the closest they will get, and
Yeah.
I feel bad for him. He's a really good, talented player, but there's I don't know what he can do. I don't know what the team can really do because
Mm.
they have. I think they had either the highest or the second highest um, amount of money put into the players. So it'll be
Mm.
interesting to see. And they haven't performed that well either. So the
Yeah.
last team I wanted to ask you about is the Phoenix Suns. What is your thoughts on the Phoenix Suns and what can they do to improve?
I mean, I think they improved since last season. This season, um, DeAndre Aiden, I think they have to monitor him a little. Like what happened with his incident. But if they can keep him on track, I think Devin Booker could be a star player on that team. And if other role players are added, I think he could eventually be a playoff contender or even a title contender.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 20 points or 20 years old. He scored 70 points. Like they obviously have talent on that team. It's just when are they going to arise to the occasion?
Hmm. I think they have a really good team, and I think I like the coach that they got in this offseason. And it'll be interesting to see what happens because I like Kelly Oubre, and I hope he comes
Yeah,
back in good shape after his injury. And I really like Devin Booker. DeAndre Ayton he's a good rebounder, and he can put up a good amount of points.
mm,
But I'm not sure how good he'll be for you. I'm not sure what
yeah.
his peak is. I think this year they really need to go after a point guard, and it won't be hard in the draft this year um, because I think Ricky Rubio is kind of regressing, and he's getting,
He's getting older.
where, yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
want him personally as a point
no,
guard.
not
So,
a start. Yeah, he's getting older and he's getting to the point where he's at that Al Horford level. He's a
mhm.
good person to have on your team for say a backup point guard, and he's like a vet that'll help the younger kids players during practice. But I can't see him going up anymore. I think he's just going to regress.
Yeah, I think it'll
Yep.
be interesting. So
Yep.
yeah.
All right.
Um, what do you? The last thing I want to ask you is: do you think if it doesn't work out in the Suns, do you think Devin Booker could possibly get traded to the Timberwolves to join up with of as we know, great friends Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns?
Yeah. Um, I could see him wanting to do that, and I've heard that he might do that. So I mean, it just really I think it'll depend on how the Suns are going to do going forward. And yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion on that?
I think if it doesn't work out, of course, for the Timberwolves, I think that'd be a great move.
Um,
And I don't think they're in a position to be that great, but I think adding Devin Booker would make them a lot better of a team. But I'm not sure if like he'll want to leave because I think that the Suns actually, for once, are actually doing a good job trying to build out a team. And like
Yeah.
I really like their head coach, so it'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
Hmm.
So you have any last things to say?
Nope. I thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for being on, Cole, and I hope everybody
Yep.
enjoyed the podcast. So yeah. All right, guys. See you guys later. Goodbye.